To get people excited about Boost Mobile's new nationwide 5G network, we're offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 a month.
Forever.
Even if you have a baby.
Even if your baby has a baby.
Even if you grow old and wrinkly and you start repeating yourself.
Even if you start repeating yourself.
Even if you're on your deathbed and you need to make one last call.
Or text.
Right, or text. The long-lost son you abandoned at birth.
You'll still get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile.
Forever!
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Forever.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Sponsored by the Meadowlands Hotel in Tralee.
In May, June, I was out canvassing for the local elections. And I'll be honest, I just didn't have the same level of energy as I had. And I thought I'll take a rest over the summer and it'll all be good and everything else.
When you hear people mention your name as a potential candidate for the presidency, how do you respond to that? How's your week been, Mary?
Very good, I must say. I have to say it's lovely to see the bit of light in the sky, and also the days getting a teeny, weeny bit longer. And, you know, I was babysitting my grandchildren down in Limerick and made Rice Krispie buns with the 5-year-old.
The great granny.
All they were interested in was licking the bowl. And I have a photograph of Holly with her face. It looks like a helmet. The bowl is actually all over her face. But anyway, they get the buns as well. It's good.
Oh, look, isn't it lovely to hear the stories of, you know, family life, isn't it lovely? In fact, we're just talking to Enda, our wonderful producer here, about the people who are tuning in, you know, to the programme, and the people who tune in to listen to this podcast, because going through the messages and the feedback, it's amazing. It's literally from age 18 to 94. We know about the 94-year-old. Well, I know about my mother, she's 93, but we know that there's a 94-year-old who's beaten her, because there's a lady here in Allenwood, Mary Moore, we're told, is a very avid listener, and she's 94 years young. So a big thank you and a big shout out to Mary and everybody like her who's listening to us.
Well, we're delighted that Mary is enjoying the podcast, and I hope that your mother's enjoying them as well, Mary. Is she?
She is, and thank God she can't comment on what I'm wearing, which is great. Yeah,
that's good. And you know, somebody like your mother and Mary Moore must have seen so many changes in their lives. Isn't it wonderful to have the opportunity to kind of to know that? And I regret, my grandmother lived till she was 102, and I really, really regret not sitting down with her more and finding out what life was like on a daily basis. And actually here in studio, now we're not comparing her or talking about her in the same breath as the women who have seen.
Our guest is looking shocked.
Our guest has seen an awful lot of changes throughout her political career.
Oh, she has a whole lot in front of her yet. She certainly has. Great woman. There's an old saying that all political careers end in failure. It's not true. Our guest today is proof positive that it's not true. She's just about to exit the political stage a short time from now, on her own terms. And I would say you won't hear a word raised except in praise of her, from one end of this island to the other. From side to side of the island. Heather Humphreys, we're just thrilled to have you here and to welcome you to Allenwood.
Well, thank you to Mary and to Mary. It's great to be here, and those are very kind words that you have said.
Well deserved, though.
And it's lovely to have the opportunity to chat with you both.
And it's lovely to have you here in Allenwood, because you have such a profile for the, you know, for the advocacy for rural Ireland. And here you are in the heart of the Bog of Allen.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's my first time in Allenwood, and I've just had a lovely lunch in the local cafe, and it's like.
Well, you ran into some very nice people.
I did,
including my husband and myself, and a few others besides. We all ended up beside in the one table.
It was lovely to bump into you there, and I said that must be the place to go now. I'm in the right place.
It surely is. Yeah, it's the heart of Allenwood.
So it was lovely, and there's something lovely about rural Ireland, and I've lived all my life in it, apart from a few years I spent in Dublin, but I love it, and there's something warm about it when you go into villages and you see people, and people in rural Ireland always say hello to you. That's important.
You grew up in rural Monaghan?
Yes, I grew up on a farm just outside a little village called Drum, which is on the border between Monaghan and County Cavan. and I was reared there with my father was an only son, so we lived with our grandparents, his mother and father, and my mother, and I have 2 younger brothers. So I was the eldest of 3. It was very much a working farm, and I mean working in every sense of the word, because you dare not say you were bored, because there would be a job found for you very quickly.
Yeah, your chores. So what kind of things would you have to do?
The chores? Well, from a young age, we were able to feed calves. No bother, we could do that. My father was always very conscious of making the bales of hay quite small, because he had his own baler, so we used to make them smaller so we could handle them as we got older. We were able to lift the bales. They weren't really heavy, and I remember Daddy could always split the bale and tie it up, and that you could put it on your back and bring it down to feed the calves. There was more cattle outside at the time. They weren't all housed during the winter like they are now. I was able to milk the cows. I could drive a tractor. I could use a grape, and I could dig potatoes, and I could do many, many things. All the farm duties that everybody did at the time.
And how many of you were there?
Three in my family.
But it was an intergenerational household.
Oh, yes,
You
yes.
had the grandparents as well.
That's right. My grandmother and my grandfather, and I know you were speaking about your grandmother there, and I suppose I have the same regret. I probably didn't ask enough questions, or maybe probe enough. I was 18 when my grandfather died, and he lived to the ripe old age of 85, and that was in 1978. And my grandmother died a few years later. But they had acquired that farm. He had bought it in I think it was around 1920. And then I was saying to somebody recently, he bought a house on a farm, and he had sold where he was, and then he got his wife. And
he was a good catch there, so
he was
wasn't
a good
catch as well.
And then they had one son. That was my father.
I'm just fascinated by your family background, because it's not normative, is it? You're rural Ireland, but rural Ireland Protestant, border. Your grandparents, your parents would have been steeped in probably the notion of the British Empire, and the very strong connection with the Orange Order. They knew changing times.
Yes, they did. They lived through a lot of changes. My grandfather was a young man in 1912. He signed the Ulster Covenant, and that was the normal then for all of the Protestant population in Monaghan and Cavan, because they were concerned about the changes that were going to come, and they obviously they had strong views on it, and they felt that they wanted things to remain as they were. And we can understand that today, because people want things to remain as they were, and they didn't want these changes coming. So he signed that, and he had his farm, and he got married, had my father, and they continued on. And of course they came through the First World War, Second World War, the big impact on rural Ireland as well. But he managed that, and that was it. We just kept going, and there was never any idea that we would want to leave where we were living, and we had our farm, we had our friends, we had our relations, and it was all part of the community there.
Was it a convivial community?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was. Well, I can only speak for when I was growing up, and it was at that time. And of course, the troubles in Northern Ireland did have an impact on everybody, and we know that, and it did have an impact on communities south of the border as well.
But how did it happen that in your family, given the partition and the troubles, you end up with this renowned openness? First of all, you end up being a strong supporter of the Republic and Republican ideals, and there wouldn't be a trace of bigotry in your body, not one. And so, how would it happen that a community that must have felt very oppressed by events post-partition and worried particularly through the Troubles, how do you end up being who you are, and how did they respond to who you are?
Well, we were brought up and reared as a family to respect people, to respect other people's views, and to listen to other people and to work with other people. And my father was always got on well with his neighbours. It didn't matter. And, you know, your neighbours are your neighbours. It doesn't matter what religion they are when you're in the country, because you'll always need your neighbours. You'll always need them. And you develop relationships. And we were always brought up to respect other people and to respect their point of view. And I think that is very strong. And that's something I've always lived by, is that you should treat other people as you would like to be treated yourself.
And Heather, when you were going to school, your parents chose a multi-denominational and a cross-community school. Was that part of that?
Well, what happened, we all went to a very small school in Drum, and it was a one-teacher school. I think there was about 14 or 15 of us at the school at the time. In fact, there was one Catholic family that went to the school as well. But when it came to religion class, they went home a little earlier. And the same happened in any of the local schools, because there wasn't the same segregation that happened later on, maybe, particularly in Northern Ireland. So we all went to the school. We were all children. We were all treated the same. And then normally the Protestant community would like to send their kids to the Protestant schools. So there was a school in Monaghan.
Second level.
Yeah, at second level. At second level. And there's a school in Monaghan, there's a school in Cavan. School in Cavan was a boarding school, and I said, I'm not going to boarding school, because if you send me there, I'm going to break out. And I'll run away. So it was decided then, there was a number of us around, friends at the same age, going to the same church, and we all went to the school in Cootehill, which is St. Aidan's, was a comprehensive community school. And I have to say, I got a great education there. And I think it really was the making of us in many ways, because we were encouraged to speak out. We were encouraged to believe in ourselves. And the only thing, though, I do remember my mother saying to me at the time, because you're talking here about 1972, 73, 74, start of the Troubles. I remember them saying to us, now you're going into a big school. Everybody will be there. I tell you, just keep your head down and keep your mouth shut, and don't be bringing trouble on your family.
Oh, right.
There was a lot happening in the north at the time, and people were there was a lot of young men from south of the border went to join the RUC at the time. And they went there not for the love of, as I say, king or country. They went there because it was a job opportunity. Joining the police in Northern Ireland was a chance for a good, permanent, pensionable job in the 60s when jobs were scarce. But once the Troubles broke out, they couldn't come back. They couldn't come back home to visit their ill mother, or they couldn't come back to their mother's or father's funeral, because they were afraid. And there was many instances where they were attacked, and where there were there was one prison officer I remember in particular, and he was staying with his mother, and he was attacked that night, and the IRA came, and he was fortunate enough to have a dog that raised the alarm. They shot the dog, and then he was able to mobilise, and he was okay. So he didn't. He must have had a gun with him or something. There was nobody shot, nobody killed, but he was able to defend himself.
But he'd never have been back.
No. People don't come back for that. So these are the things that maybe that were happening at the time. But anyway, I went to the school in Cootehill, and I have to say I enjoyed it, and we had a very good principal at the time, and he was very fair, and he made sure that we all got we had our separate religion classes. But we were all children, and we were young people, and we were interested in each other, and politics was not on our radar.
It's interesting to me to hear you talk about, parents during the Troubles saying, keep your head down, don't be going looking for trouble, don't be saying things that'll get you into bother, don't be bringing trouble to our door. So how do you end up pursuing a career in politics?
Yeah. Well, I suppose I left school and I went to work in the Ulster Bank, and I remember it was considered a good career. And I remember my father bringing me for the aptitude tests. I'll have to tell you this story. And I went and I did the exam. I think it was in Athlone. And I came back home, and he said to me, it was in October, and it was frostier weather then. And he came home now. He says, I have potatoes, he said, and we're all there. He said, the potatoes have to be gathered, he said. And he said, come on now, I'm after bringing you to spend the whole morning in Athlone. And it was quite a journey, drove me down, drove me back. And he said, come on, we have to get these potatoes gathered. And I remember, changed the clothes, got the Wellingtons on, got the bucket. He had a potato digger, and we had to pick them. And I remember as each potato went in, I said, if I get this job, I never have to dig potatoes again.
So that was your way into politics then, was it?
No. So I worked in the Ulster Bank for 21 years, and I enjoyed that, and I worked my way through, first of all in Dublin, then worked in retail banking, and then I was promoted in 1991. I became an assistant manager in a branch banking. There was very few women in branch banking. They assigned the women to the departments, probably because I thought they couldn't do much damage there. But the bank manager was a male-dominated institution, let's call it, at the time. I worked my way through there, and in 1999 I decided to leave, and I took up a job as a manager in a credit union. And
was it the attraction of being manager in your own place?
Yeah, well, I was always ambitious, and in my career, and it was, I decided to make that change because to further my career, I was told I'd have to move maybe to other parts of the country. That didn't suit me because I was married to a farmer, and I wanted to stay put in County Monaghan where I lived. So I moved then to the credit union and got a job there. And I think that allowed me then to get involved in politics, because when you were in the bank, you were not allowed to mix politics and banking.
But you were always dealing with people, weren't you?
Always,
both in the bank and in the credit unions.
I love people.
Serving people.
Serving people and helping them. And I enjoy people, and I get energy from chatting and from talking to them. And particularly, if you can help somebody, if you can solve a problem. When I was in the credit union, there was many problems you could solve because they may need a loan for something, whether it was the washing machine that broken or whether small things.
School uniform.
All of those things.
New car, 4 tyres.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then, while I was in the credit union, I was able to get involved in politics. And I was approached. I didn't look for politics. It just came to me.
Seymour, was he your... Tell me about Seymour, because he was a great old pal of ours.
Yeah.
Tell people about Seymour.
Seymour Crawford was the TD, and he spent his life in IFA and then went on to join Fine Gael and got elected to the Dáil. So Seymour was my neighbour, and I knew him to say hello and that. So Seymour, the dual mandate ended. So Seymour couldn't be a TD and a county councillor, so we needed a replacement. So Seymour had been around the party membership, and he had tried a number of people to see would for a successor to be co-opted onto Monaghan County Council and serve as a councillor. So anyway, he had tried quite a few people. So on a Saturday, I think it was Saturday night or maybe it was Sunday night, he went to Eddie Hawthorne was his name, and Eddie's still there, and he went to Eddie and he said, I need somebody to replace me on Monaghan County Council. And Eddie said to him, he said, have you any ideas who I could get? So Eddie said to him, he says, Bert Stewart. He's involved in IFA. And
it's your brother?
Yeah, my brother, Bert. Yeah, and he might be interested. You could try him. And then he says, what about Heather? She lives beside you. Maybe you should try her. So anyway, Seymour got into the car and he thought to himself, left for Bert, right for Heather. He says, they're looking for women, I'll try her first.
A good move.
Did Bert ever forgive you?
No, he didn't mind. So anyway, he asked me, and he came on a I think it was a Saturday or Sunday night anyway, and he said, would you be interested in joining and replacing me on Monaghan County Council? And I thought to myself, I says, yeah, what does it involve? Oh, 1 meeting a month, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Of course. Yeah, right. And I said, my husband did say to me, well, he says, opportunities come to pass, not to pause. And I thought to myself,
your husband said
yes,
that,
he did say it to me. And I said, I said, I have an opinion on many things. And if I get an opportunity to make a change and can help and do something differently and contribute, what right have I ever to give out about politicians if I don't take this chance myself? I need to know by 5 o'clock tomorrow, said Seymour. I says, right, okay. Leave it with me. And I checked with the board of directors in the credit union in Cootehill, and they said that's okay. And then that was it.
Tell us about your husband and your family's attitude to it.
well, they didn't mind. As I said, Eric said to me, look, if you want to go for it, you go for it. And I said, well, I'll give it a try. And of course, Seymour said, there's always a way of winding you in. He said, well, there's no election. This is October. There's no election until next May, so you can make your mind up. But don't you know, well, you get drawn in.
Yes,
I went for election then in 2004 and just about got elected. But then I went again in 2009 and I got elected, no bother.
They knew you well then.
They knew you well.
How did you meet your husband? How did you and Eric meet?
I met him, we went to local dances, believe it or not. Back in the day. Exactly. That's where I met him, at a dance.
Was he a good
the
dancer?
Hall. He was actually, yeah, he was good.
Oh,
yeah.
lucky you.
Yeah, he was good enough.
And you had two children. Were they born at the time you were going? Were they? Yeah.
Eva, in 2003, Eva was 13 and Tara was 10. And
they were young enough still.
Yeah, but it was local. I didn't want to be away from them when they were younger, and so they were a bit older when I went for national politics.
Yeah.
And Tara had just was about to do her leaving cert whenever I went for national politics in 2011. And of course, when you're going for politics, you have your car covered in stickers and all sorts of things.
And was that a daunting prospect, making the move from the county council to national politics? It's a big step, isn't it, Heather?
Yeah, well,
Personally.
again, it was. I didn't really think much about it. I said, sure, here, I'll give it a go. And if I get elected, great. And if I don't get elected, well, I have my job in the credit union and I was very happy doing the job I was doing. But it was just an opportunity, so I took it. But going back to Tara and the story about the car being covered in the pictures of her mother. So she had got a bus from Monaghan to go to a disco, and my husband was collecting her when the disco went off the bus. So anyway, he never thought. He jumped into the car. And poor Tara was about to get off the bus, and the next thing, the rest of the kids on the bus said, look at your mammy on the car. Marto. At 17.
I know.
Yeah, that reminds me of R3, when shortly after I was elected in 97, we went to Clonus to an Ulster final, actually.
Yes.
And our kids mad into Gaelic football, and but they travelled in the presidential car, and coming into Clonus, I looked in the back seat and the three of them were lying on the floor. They didn't want to be seen.
Mortified.
Got up the street in Clonus where everybody was dressed in the red and black. County Down was playing, and they were big Down fans, and they knew everybody. And they didn't want anybody waving in at them to see them in the fancy car.
I know.
Yeah, we mortify our children. We do.
And it was busy from the start once you got elected. 2011?
2011, I got elected, yes. And it was a long count. It was, I think it was Sunday morning at 5 o'clock, I think, eventually. I was the last, it was a 5-seater, I was the last to be elected. And I was very, very glad and relieved that I got elected. And so then I started on my journey in national politics. I remember Leo Varadkar ringing me a day or two afterwards. I said, oh my goodness, Leo Varadkar just rang me. He said, just remember, he said, when you're going through, when the gates lift up, you drive up to the gates in Dáil and they will lift up. And he says, that's a great feeling when you just drive through those gates. And I did savour the moment. Yeah. And it was a lovely moment.
You've gone through them many a time since.
Yeah.
How many ministries have you held?
Arts Heritage in the Gaeltacht was the first one. Then it was changed to Arts Heritage, the Gaeltacht, and Rural and Regional Development, I think it was called at the time. And then I went back to Cultural Heritage in the Gaeltacht. Those were 3 different appointments within the one department, really. The next one was business, and I spent 2.5 years in business. And then I went from that to social protection and rural and community development.
And would you have a favourite, Heather, of all of the positions you held?
I really enjoyed business now. I really enjoyed business because that was my background.
Yes, of course.
That was my background.
Banking.
Yeah. I enjoyed the arts heritage as well, and the Gaeltacht. I did spend a week in the Gaeltacht trying to brush up on my Irish and need to go back again and now that I'll have time. But rural and community development has been fantastic.
Yeah.
It has been fantastic because I've seen a real change in rural Ireland. I've seen a positivity growing, and people are proud of rural Ireland now because they have achieved a lot. And that's been much, and my policy was always bottom-up approach. I know what I need in Nahabog and you know what you need in your area. So come forward with your ideas and we'll help you realise your vision for your area. And the people have been wonderful.
You know, because there was a feeling for a very long time from rural Ireland, there was a place of emigration, and it was kind of almost shameful.
Yeah, it was. And, Leo Varadkar set up the first Department of Rural and Community Development, and Michael Ring, of course, was the first minister. So it was my privilege in 2020 to build on that work, and remote working has been a game changer for rural Ireland. There has been no doubt about it. And I remember as Minister for Business, we did a policy on the future of work, and one of the issues was remote working. So I had spoken to Tracy Keogh, who is a great advocate for remote working, and I remember she came to present at a meeting we had, a cabinet meeting that we had in Trim, and I know the rest of the ministers around the table, I kept saying how brilliant remote working would be and how it can change lives, quality of life, more time with family, less time spent commuting, better for the environment. And I could see my colleagues thinking, yeah, right. Good idea, but, maybe not just yet. Not today. COVID hit. And boys.
Every cloud has a silver lining.
Every cloud.
Needs must.
And it was transformed.
Isn't that what they say? Necessity, the mother of invention.
Exactly. And COVID was the best pilot scheme for remote working that you could possibly imagine, because everybody wants to do a pilot scheme. So we had a pilot scheme over the whole country. It worked. And I said, this is our chance now to grasp this. We can't let it go. So we have remote working hubs. We have high-speed broadband in these hubs all over the country. And there's been a lot of work and a lot of effort has gone into that, particularly from communities that are driving it forward. And local authorities have been brilliant, and they have repurposed old buildings. They have turned them into remote working hubs, enterprise centres. Loads happening all over the country. We want to hold on to that.
But I know from the work that we do here, Enda is also the producer of Moving West, the series that you have very kindly taken part in as well. Game changer for rural Ireland, isn't it?
It really has been a game changer, and people have embraced it. Now, we just have to make sure that we don't lose that, and that this move back to the office, I think it's about finding the balance.
Sure.
The balance is always exactly where we find the solution. And I think there has to be more work done with employers to help them understand the benefits that they will have when their workers can have that option. And I have worked in 3 different places, and I always found if you encourage your employees, they will give back more than you'll ever give to them.
And you had that same attitude to children in school, particularly children who were arriving into school maybe after not having slept the night before, or children without a bite in their stomachs. Tell me about all that.
Yeah, well, the big thing in social protection for me has been the Hot School Meals program.
Hot School, that was you. Yeah.
And maybe it's the mother in me, I don't know, but I know all the evidence shows that children who get a hot meal in the middle of the day perform better. And we know we have breakfast clubs, and they're very important to get them started. But that meal in the middle of the day is very, very good for their educational attainment. And I have to say that as a mother, the amount of returns that I got for a well-chosen lunchbox was quite amazing. And then when you get to the end of the week and you put your hand at the bottom of the bag and out it comes the banana. Moundy sandwich. And it does take a bit of stress out of parents' lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Because going on a Saturday shopping like I did, and you were trying to plan the week for the lunchbox, And invariably, no matter what you tried, somebody else had something different that they wanted. Now, the Hot School Meals programme, I've seen it operate in schools.
It's fantastic.
It is.
Yeah, we were not that long ago. We were in a school down the road where Enda's children go, and we happened to be there when the meal was served. But should they all have their choice? It's like they tick the box days in advance to say what they're going to have.
They chose their menu, Heather.
Yeah, they chose their. I thought it was phenomenal. I wish I was in this school.
I know. But the other thing that you, I think a great achievement, looking at my adult children now, the auto-enrolment in a pension scheme, I think that's fab.
You see, nobody thinks of that when you're 24, but somebody needs to be thinking about it. You did that.
Yeah, that was something that I think the late Seamus Brennan started somewhere in the region between 25, nearly 30 years ago. And it started and everybody was talking about it. And indeed, he tried to get it going and many others tried to get it going. But I was delighted that I got it over the line. And now it was like pushing a big stone up the hill. Yeah. And I nearly got it at the top. And I said to some of the lads one day, I said, "Hi boys, this stone ain't coming back down again."
You are not Sisyphus.
No, I'm getting it over the top of the hill. And over it went. Now there's always resistance to big changes like that. And that was a big change. And I was delighted. Wonderful staff in the Department of Social Protection. I had a wonderful team around me in terms of my own advisors, and we got it over the line. And I couldn't have got it over the line without the cooperation of my colleagues in government, and that is Pascal Donoghue and Micheál McGrath. And we all worked together, and I'm very pleased. Got the legislation, got agreement, got a legislation passed, and it's now going to be enacted in September of 2025. So that means the 800,000 people who do not have a pension scheme, an occupational or private pension, that they will have one. And
they have a lot to thank you for in time to come.
It's a legacy, isn't it, to leave to the country?
A lot of low-income people, a lot of women. A lot of women have no other pension other than the state pension. And that remains the bedrock of the pension system, is our state pension. But this is an additional income that you'll have when you retire. And I'm looking forward now. I probably won't see the benefits of it all, but in time, so it's there now. And I'm glad that we have done that. We were an outlier in Europe that we didn't have it. So it's done and dusted now.
Your decision to step back from politics, having accomplished an enormous amount, it surprised everybody. It took everybody by surprise. Talk to me about your thinking in the lead up to it. What were you trying to? What change were you trying to effect in your life, and what might the future hold? Because it occurs to me, yes, God knows you're entitled to a period of rest because politics is the dynamic is very hard. But you're going to have a few months now, maybe 8 or 9 months before a presidential election comes up, and your name has been mentioned in dispatches as a potential candidate.
Would you be interested, Heather?
Tell us about that. Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Sponsored by the Meadowlands Hotel in Tralee.
This tax season at Boost Mobile, when you buy 6 months on our best unlimited plans, we will give you the next 6 months for free.
Plus, enter to win up to $10,000 and double your tax refund.
Your refund, your rules. Requires upfront payment. Taxes and fees extra. Terms and exclusions apply. Visit boostmobile.com for full offer terms and sweeps details.
Getting engaged can be stressful. Getting the right ring won't be. At BlueNile.com. The jewelers at BlueNile.com have sparkle down to a science with beautiful lab-grown diamonds worthy of your most brilliant moments. Their lab-grown diamonds are independently graded and guaranteed identical to natural diamonds and ready to ship to your door. Get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more with code LISTEN at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com, code LISTEN for $50 off.
In June, I was out canvassing for the local elections. And I'll be honest, I just didn't have the same level of energy as I had. And I thought I'll take a rest over the summer and it'll all be good and everything else. I decided then that the energy levels aren't just what they used to be. And now I would work I worked long hours and no problem doing it. I loved every minute of it. But I just felt that it was coming time to step off the pitch and let somebody else, let fresher legs come onto the pitch. And I thought back about the late Seymour Crawford. Right. Seymour Crawford stepped off the pitch in 2011 when he could have easily got re-elected. And he could have gone on. But he stepped off to give somebody else a chance. And that person was me.
It was you. Yeah.
So I decided then, and I thought about it, I talked to the family, and they were keen that I would spend more time there and more time with family, and maybe I'm going to do other things. Like, I'm just hanging up the political boots and taking a rest. And as I said, I'll take the rest. I want to take a rest. I wanted to spend more time with the family. I have very young grandchildren. I love every minute I spend with them. I was with them the other day, and I just really enjoy it.
They're delightful, aren't they?
I was out in the garden. I know there's nothing in the garden in January, but the little lad wanted to do a bit of digging, and I said, "Come on, we'll do a bit of digging." And just gathering sticks on the lawn where the branches had dropped down off the leaves of the trees.
You're not making him dig potatoes, no?
Not yet. But he will.
But he will.
Oh, he did. I grow my own potatoes
there
now.
You go.
You have to make Rice.
Some things don't change.
I actually have the Rice Krispie box. I have the Rice Krispies in the press. I didn't have time.
When you hear people mention your name as a potential candidate for the presidency, and they're clearly thinking towards what's coming down the line for Ireland in the next 7 to 10 years. There'll be a lot of talk about referendum, for example, on partition. And your position, your background, your in your DNA, if you like, and in your experience, people would be thinking, gosh, there is a package. How do you respond to that?
Well, to be very straight with you, I do want to take a break. I want to take a rest, and look, it's still a while away, and I'm looking forward to taking a break now and taking some time out and reflect and see how I get on and see what happens. And look, that's all I'll say for now.
And you're not saying a big emphatic no. Good for you.
You're too intense at it, Mary. And finally, you did well.
Yeah, we did okay. We did okay.
But being, as Mary said, so brought up on the border, what would be your thoughts with regard to a united Ireland?
Well, I think what first of all we have to do is we have to have a united people. We have to break down those barriers, and there's a lot of barriers there, and we all know that. And we've come a long way, and the violence has ended. Thank God for that. Because I actually was up in Belfast, and I did the black taxi run.
Did you?
I did.
The murals.
And at the end of it all, after so many years of violence, what did it all achieve? So we have to really, really work together and to break down those preconceptions. And we saw that during the 2016 commemorations. We shone a light on 1914, we shone a light on 1916, and we saw there's so much to
You did great work on that.
Yeah, well, we just
got us through that.
We shared
that
so
centenaries.
much.
Tell us, yeah, you did.
Yeah, I it was very important that we shine a light on all of the events, and we, at the end of the day, there's more to unite us than divide us, and we should remember that. And what's important to people is that our families are reared. At the end of the day, that's what's most important, and that they have a right to equality, and everybody gets treated the same. And I think that there's a bit of work, as we all know, in Northern Ireland, and I hope that a lot of people have put a huge amount of work in, especially yourself, Mary and Martin, and that work does need to continue, and we should never take our foot off the pedal, because we really can never take it for granted. There's a lot of more work to do. We know that, and I think we can do that, and we can achieve that, and we can achieve where people at the end of the day, if you think back to of partition and 1921, there was a lot of reasons why people wanted to remain part of the United Kingdom. When you look at Belfast and the wealth in Belfast, and why it was in their economic interest to remain part of the UK at the time. And you look at what in Dublin, there was a lot of poverty. You go into the tenements in Dublin. So sometimes when things shift and things change, people need to reevaluate and they need to look at where their best interests are served. And I think that will come in time.
Do you think Brexit will play a role in that? Because it has been pretty powerless, hasn't it? It didn't deliver what it was supposed to. And here's the Republic now. You know, one of the wealthiest countries in the world. A friend of mine, newly minted MP in England, Adam Juggy, was invited to the Dáil by Labour friends for our budget, and it was the week after the Labour Party conference, and at which the new Keir Starmer Prime Minister had said, you know, belt tightening, austerity, a big budget deficit. It was all bad news essentially. And then he said he comes to Dublin and he sits and he said all he could see was like euros flying in the air by the million. And he said to his wife, who's from Northern Ireland, I think Ireland's trolling us, he said. It was such a contrast. So do you think that'll play out in the discussions up ahead and where we all end up, or where this country ends up, whether we're here or not?
Yeah, I've spoken to people in Northern Ireland. I've spoken to people who from loyalist communities, and I've said to them, I said, you know my background, you know where I came from. I said, this country has given me a wonderful opportunity. It really has. It has allowed me to achieve my full potential. And I said, there's no reason why in a shared island situation, it won't allow everybody to achieve their full potential. And at the end of the day, that's what people want to do. And that's what you want for your children. You want them to be able to achieve their full potential. I think that it's important that we keep the conversations, as I said earlier, going. But Brexit has been difficult. There's no doubt about it. I was the Minister for Business during Brexit, and we did a lot of work with businesses. We did a lot of work on a cross-border basis, because there was a lot of concern on both sides of the border in terms of businesses, and a lot of businesses did not want Brexit. And I can tell you, I did not want to see...
Northern Ireland didn't want Brexit.
No, it didn't. And I didn't want to see a border, because you and I all know what borders do, create problems. And we did a lot of work.
We had flattened the border before Brexit, hadn't we?
Yeah.
We had the Single European Act had flattened the border, customs, not similarities, but the fact that they were identical, they flattened the border. And with the demilitarisation of the border, you wouldn't notice it. Only for Vodafone pinging you going across the border, you wouldn't know you were there.
After all the negotiations, I think Northern Ireland is in a better place in terms of the opportunities for the future. Maybe not now, but in the future, because they're going to have the access to the EU markets and they still have access to the UK markets. And it's how they can develop that and how they can have stronger links. They need to have a voice in Europe, and we are their voice in Europe. And I think we can build on that, and there's more we can do.
It's a far cry, isn't it, Heather, just going back in time and living on the border. I can remember hearing stories about, the butter coming across the border and all the really funny stories. I can remember loving people to go up north and bring us down opal fruits, and they would come very, very surreptitiously across the border.
Plastic sandals. My father did a great run in plastic sandals.
Was you aware of that growing up?
I was well aware of it. Don't smuggle butter on a hot day.
Yeah.
Put your skirts.
And that's the rule. Now, and Maltesers, even children smuggled. We smuggled the Maltesers across the border because you couldn't buy Maltesers here. Now, as a well-known historian said to me one time, she said, she says, the border made petty criminals out of us all. And
that's an admission or not. Say nothing.
Because it was butter and there was sugar
as well. There was sugar going one direction.
And biscuits and oh my goodness me, there were border shops all around Clonus, and it was only especially after dark, it was only a wee hop over and back. But these were our neighbours. We were supporting
the local economy.
But you see, it was actually quite good, because the checkpoint was usually beyond the shop, so you didn't actually have to go through the checkpoint because you'd get the shop. It was, there was
that discreetly placed?
Yes, all different. Oh, there's loads of stories. There's loads of books on
any anecdote from your own experience. Let
me think about it.
Bearing in mind that you are entitled to plead the fifth and you don't have to incriminate yourself.
Well, there was many a story about butter coming across, and indeed, like it's been there a long time, the border, and I remember they used to have bicycles, and the butter would go into the flax hole to keep it cold, so they dump it quickly so the customs officials wouldn't get it, and then they'd have to try and find the butter, and it used to be difficult, And then you had the subsidy on the pigs, and the pig house was in the north and in the south at the same time, so they used to run them through into the north
end of the field,
and then back again
into the northern part of the field,
over and back. Every time you ran them over, you got a subsidy.
But Irish people have always been very creative, haven't they? And entrepreneurial as well.
Well, this is it. Yeah.
You mentioned that in the bank you were conscious that it was, that at the top level it was pretty much a man's sphere. Politics is still, regrettably, pretty much a man's sphere. Were you conscious of facing challenges as a woman in politics?
Well, actually, I'd been through the challenges of women in banking, and that was probably the toughest, because I was younger and I was probably feistier, and I really had to fight my way through that one. And I remember the girls working in one of the offices, and one of the girls said to me one day, "Heather, why do you do it? Why do you keep pushing on?" I said, "Because I know I can. I can do this job. I can do it. I can do the same job as the men can do." And that's not saying anything derogatory about men. We all have, it's about, again, once again,
a system.
It's a system, and it's about a balance, and it's about recognising talent. And getting the best person to do the job. And that wasn't always the case. I'm sure that's human nature, I suppose. But particularly, it was biased against women. Women they did not get the same opportunities in the banking world. There's no doubt about that. And indeed, I heard somebody speaking about the civil service. Women didn't get the same opportunities there either. And if you went on maternity leave, you were. Well, I remember one fella. He was brave enough. I don't know how he was so brave. He said, "You're going on your holidays." I said, "I am what? Going on my holidays to have a baby?" What? That's right. God. Really? And but there was a bit of a mentality like that. Anyway. When I got into politics, I was older, and I was well fit to fight my corner, I have to say. And I didn't experience any, I really didn't experience any huge difficulties. But bearing in mind, I was older, I had more experience under my belt.
You fought the wars.
And I was better able to deal with situations, and I suppose I was no pushover at that stage.
And Heather, I know that you speak very warmly about your family. Have there been any challenges in your personal life? Wasn't there a situation with your daughter, and she had a very bad crash?
Tara had a bad car accident, all right, when she was in college. She was actually on an Erasmus over in France. She was home for her friend's birthday party. And she was coming home, and she had a car accident. She hit a tree. She had a very bad head injury, airlifted and all the rest into Beaumont, and they did a wonderful job. It was difficult, but
she was in a coma.
She was in a coma, yeah,
for how long?
For 10 days.
What was it like sitting by her bed for 10 days?
It was it wasn't easy, but I have to say people were so good. There was prayers said for our Tara all over the county, all over the country. And I honestly believe it was the power of prayer that helped her recovery. The doctors were absolutely wonderful, and she made a wonderful recovery. And it takes time. When I got her home, I thought, "Oh, this is brilliant," but it does take time. And
head injury,
injury,
yeah, always.
And perhaps maybe we should maybe there could be more supports in place for acquired brain injuries. Yeah. But she was perfect. She made a full and complete recovery. And she's married now to a lovely lad in Leitrim, and she's living there.
Was she married to a Leitrim man?
Yes.
Yes.
I can tell you, when difficulties and challenges come your way in terms of your job and other things, I always think back and think to myself, thank God for what's
nothing
important.
Could ever have been. No. Nothing could ever compare in terms of bad.
Not at all. No. Absolutely not.
I imagine sitting beside your daughter's bed when she's in a coma, and you don't know if she's going to come out of it.
No, we don't know how she's going to come out.
And if she comes out of it, how will she be? That must be the nightmare of all nightmares.
You don't, but you work your way through it. And I never imagined that you wouldn't.
Yeah.
And as you say, you had great support.
I had great support.
Do you have good faith?
Yeah, no, I do. I do have good faith, and I go to church. Probably not as often as I should do, but I go to church regularly enough. Yeah, at least twice a month.
You keep in good touch with God then?
I do. I keep in touch. Maybe I don't pray as often as I should, but no, I do believe. I do believe.
How do you feel now about stepping down? Because you are so busy, and this is going to be a big change, isn't it?
Yeah, it will be a change, but I'm looking forward to it because I know there's bound to be other things I want to do. First of all, I do love my garden. Yeah. I absolutely love gardening. I find it very peaceful out there. You're in touch with nature. I love growing my own vegetables, particularly. I have flowers as well. They're all in pots everywhere, all around the place. But it's very rewarding to grow your own vegetables. And then I had loads of tomatoes this year, so I was busy making tomato chutney and tomato relish or whatever. And I enjoy that. I actually do. And it's going back to probably where I was very much part of my upbringing was we had all sorts of vegetables. My grandfather had potatoes, peas, cauliflower, all of these things, and cabbage. And we were always a house that cooked and liked to cook food. And there's a big emphasis on food in my upbringing, and continues to be an emphasis on good food.
I remember once interviewing you in a different context and hearing that you love to play the piano. Will you be able to do that a bit more now, Heather?
Well, I hope I'll be able to, yes, do a bit more piano playing.
There's a great Steinway in the Aris. Yeah.
Oh, well said, Mary.
No. When I play the piano,
you sound better on it than me.
All doors are closed. Nobody can listen to me playing the piano, but I do get great pleasure out of it. And it's an hour, it just disappears. You go into another world, and it's very, very relaxing. I enjoy it.
Will you be doing more of that then?
There's a number of things. I'm very fortunate to have the Sir Tyrone Guttery Centre is right beside me.
And McCarrick is beside you there.
Yeah. And I very much value the work that they do. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful retreat for artists. So it's not too far from me. So if I can help out there at any stage, I'd be happy to help them out.
There's a question that we ask everybody. And it's, if there's one thing you could change either in your own life or in the world around you, what would it be?
Well, I suppose we all make decisions at different stages in our life. We can only make the decisions based on the information and the circumstances we find ourselves in. So we always try to do our best and make the right decision. In terms of the world around, I would say, we look at a very volatile world at the minute. We look at so many places and so much war and conflict, and I don't know, but if we could just try and make a difference somewhere. It's so fruitless, all of the violence, and it only brings grief and heartache. That's all it ever brings. And if we could do something to make an impact there, I think it would be important.
And there you have it, another episode of Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations, all wrapped up. Big thank you to our producer Enda Grace and the team here at Dundara Television and Media in the heart of Allenwood in County Kildare.
And we're also, of course, very grateful to Anne-Marie Staunton, who is our researcher. Her work has been invaluable in this series. And, of course, to our wonderful sponsor, the Meadowlands Hotel in beautiful Tralee. So don't forget to subscribe to Changing Times on your own favourite podcast platform and stay up to date with us.
And we hope that you'll join us next time as we continue to explore the voices and the stories that shape our country and our communities.
And fascinating people. Until then, from all of us here in Allenwood, County Kildare, Slán go fóill. Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Sponsored by the Meadowlands Hotel in Tralee.
To make switching to the new Boost Mobile risk-free, we're offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
So why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Because you have nothing to lose. Boost Mobile is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
No, I asked why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Oh.
Wouldn't.
Because you love wasting money as a way to punish yourself because your mother never showed you enough love as a child?
Whoa. Easy there.
Yeah.
Applies to online activations. Requires port in and auto pay. Customers activating in stores may be charged non-refundable activation fees.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But some opinions are more useful than others. And we all want the good ones. The ones that shake things up, spark debates, and change minds. Financial Times readers know that their opinions are reliable because they're shaped by trusted journalism. Robust opinions, confident decisions. Source FT. To subscribe, go to ft.com/sourceft.